listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
It's 1 o'clock.
Yes.
This is America's Web Radio from Atlanta, Georgia, United States of America. And this is...
Let's Talk Venezuelans.
Hey, and now we have a great friend.
Yes.
I remember when you were in the
Testing the waters.
part, and the first person that we visit
Yes.
is this gentleman that now is with us. He's a pastor, he's a leader, and he's a candidate.
Yeah, he's a candidate for the Senate here in Georgia.
U.S. Senate.
U.S. Georgia. U.S. Senate,
Senate.
yeah, representing Georgia. And a lot of people say for the seat of Isaacson, but I say no, for the seat of the people. They used to be occupied by Isaacson.
Exactly.
So how many candidates?
Welcome, sir.
How many candidates?
And his name?
Yeah, Derrick Greyson.
Okay.
The wonderful Derrick Greyson.
What a presentation.
Duh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You know, it's this here. We try to be very natural here, relax. You know, if we have to laugh, we crack some joke and you know we go with it. But just now, I just got inspired, but I forgot your name.
Oh, it's still the same, Derrick Greyson. It hasn't changed since the last time we met.
So, how many of you guys are running for this seat when I represent the people of Georgia?
So for the November special election, I don't know how many Democrats. I know there's at least one Libertarian.
Okay.
And there is myself, of course, Collins and Loeffler, whatever, to retain the seat. And there's at least one other Republican. So there are at least 4 Republicans running for the seat, along with the Democrats and one Libertarian that I do know of.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is the last days were very special times. You are a pastor and a leader, and one of the best political analysts that I ever met. And I want you to show us your picture about all this situation with the passing of
George Floyd. Yeah.
And
Your
how
point of
this
view.
has affect our community and not only from the political point of view, but from your special part, because you share both part, the political and the spiritual. So the microphones are open for you, sir.
Okay, so first I need to make a couple of clarifications. One, I am not a leader. I have leadership skills
Okay.
on how to get things done,
Okay.
but I am a servant.
Praise.
And I hear all the time politicians talking about, I'm going to be a leader that's going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I'm not interested in anybody going anywhere to act as a leader for what's best for me.
Oh.
I am not endeavoring on this course to go and be a leader for anybody's life. I think that if they are looking for a leader in their life, if they are Christians, then it should be Christ.
Amen.
Not any man. Men can simply teach others what they have learned, and the hope in that teaching is that they will teach in truth and honesty. So please don't call me a leader. I am only here to serve, whether it be in the pulpit, and I tell people in the congregation whenever I preach, you better pick up your Bible and verify what I have said to you.
Yes.
I give you the scriptures. I have never in my life preached a single sermon where I read one scripture and spent 45 minutes talking about that. I like to give people context and show them precept upon precept of how these things all come together. So I just wanted to correct, and not necessarily correct the statement,
Clarify.
but to clarify
Yes.
that I am not here to lead anyone. As far as my getting involved in this, Washington, D.C. is broken. I would rather be enjoying my life, but I have 5 daughters whom I hope one day, upon marriage, being decent and in order, will give me grandchildren. I want there to be something for them. And that is the reason why I got involved in the political arena. Otherwise, I would have been content with enjoying my life and serving God and the community at a local level. But that's not happening. And we've all heard the expression, blank rolls downhill. And you know what I'm talking about. What you see at the top is a reflection of what's at the bottom. So if you have corrupt government at the top, corrupt government is going to flow all the way down to the state and local levels.
Yes.
And then the people at the local level, where they employ those underneath them, such as, and I'm going to use this term that a lot of people don't like me talking about, but now it is undeniable, and George Floyd is an example of that. Bad cops. This issue with bad cops began right after the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. They gave police officers qualified immunity in 67. Before, they didn't need that. And police officers typically did whatever they did towards blacks willy-nilly without any recompense whatsoever. But with Jim Crow dying, and I call it on the day of the dogs, the billy clubs, and the water hoses, with Jim Crow dying and these 2 additional legislative acts being passed, the tide had turned. And so they employed as a new tool qualified immunity for police officers. And who has taken advantage of that? Mostly it has been bad cops. We've often heard it over the years. I feared for my life. No wrongdoing was found. The officer was cleared. There's an officer by the name of a detective. His name was Serpico. There was a movie about him.
In New York.
Yeah. That department was so corrupt, and this officer designed in his heart to do something about it. They plotted to kill him and tried. Thank God he survived. It shook up the department, but it didn't change things overall from a historical perspective. We still see these things taking place. Now, I don't much do conspiracy theories unless they are, unless
We do.
well, I mean that's fine. I didn't say I didn't entertain them, but I don't espouse them unless it is by a preponderance of the evidence, verifiable, deniable,
Yes.
and documented on government letterhead somewhere. And that's not necessarily to say, because I had to correct somebody, well, what do you mean by government approval? I didn't say anything about government approval. I said documented on government letterhead, meaning somewhere somebody has documented some act as being as having taken place. For instance, Operation Northwoods. If anybody is a student of history, we understand that.
Yes.
Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. Operation Northwoods, where a general under John F. Kennedy desired in his heart to actually move forward with a false flag, and we all hear that term every day, in an effort to give the United States a reason to go into Cuba. Okay, so you can look that up. But getting back on point, George Floyd. If you look at, and the reason I brought up conspiracy, if you look at that video and look at that officer's face, there was a coldness to it, as though he knew what he was doing. Part of the reason why they finally decided to go ahead and bring charges against the other four, one officer was heard saying, "Don't you think we ought to let him up? No, let him up now." And Chauvin said, "No, that was intent. That established intent."
Yes.
And he continued in that intent for almost 9 minutes until Mr. Floyd was dead. And to the point of conspiracy, I believe that this was a seminal moment and intentional to bring about what we see taking place all over the country now. Who does what this guy did? I mean, I've seen some cops do some damnable deeds, but this was pure evil. And I believe that there may be something to it, and that it was an orchestrated, planned event, and that Mr. Floyd just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will be back after these messages.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
If your health insurance premium is more than your mortgage, Ellen Deal with Ideal Solutions is here to help. Whether you're a small business owner, individual family, or baby boomer, email MAGA45CAG@gmail.com and I'll respond with 3 easy questions to help you determine if you can get away from Obamacare. As a 20-year veteran of the insurance industry, I'm here to help with all your insurance needs. Email Ellen Deal at MAGA45CAG@gmail.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
He's running. I'm just putting the thing. Okay, Derrick.
Very interesting what you were explaining before, and by the point of, the legal point of view. Very interesting. I'm learning a lot too. Thank you for that explanation.
No problem.
And as a spiritual in church, and hopefully from the Bible Belt, Georgia, a new senator in Washington, D.C., right? And we can put the house back, fix the mess that is over there, try to fix the mess, and, it's a big mess over there. Anyways, what is the message that we could have for those who are conservative, who fears the Lord? Because we know there is a lot in both sides, in the Republican and the Democrat, there is a lot of people that are atheists, they don't want to know anything about God. But we have a lot of people who fears the Lord, and they are looking for that specific nourishment in this week. This week, we witnessed the best of United States and the worst of United States. The best was going to space. And the worst is specifically what you were explaining before.
So, if people were not afraid of the truth, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I'm going to go back into antiquity. When Christ came on the scene, there had been 400 years of silence.
Yes.
And in the course of those 400 years, 3 groups had essentially gained power amongst the children of Israel. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the Roman Empire. I'm talking about the Pharisees, the Sadducees, Sanhedrin. And so when Christ came on the scene, like Trump, and I'm using them as a comparative analysis, like Trump is at war against the establishments of both parties, which is really one establishment.
Yes, sir.
The deep state, and of course, governments, local and state governments all over the country. Christ was upsetting that balance too. When Christ went into the temple and overturned the money changers' tables, he was saying, "You have turned my father's house into a den of thieves." Trump likewise has gone into Washington, D.C. by attacking trade, by attacking the insecure borders, all manner of other things that he dealt, the Paris Peace Accord, defunding Planned Parenthood. By attacking all of those issues, Trump likewise has overturned the money changers' tables, and they are upset.
Yes.
No.
And here is where, yes, here's where we are. So if you'll indulge me for a moment. When these power structures decided that we cannot allow Christ to continue, else the people might believe him, we must find a way to shut him up. And the people were so caught up in what they were saying, they chose a thief over Christ. They even gave them a choice. Who shall we release? This man you call the Christ or Barabbas? They chose Barabbas. Now here's the good part. When Christ got up on the cross, he said, "Forgive them because they know not what they do."
Yeah.
Trump is trying to tell everybody, while they're constantly trying to crucify him and blame him for everything.
Everything.
People, this is about you. This is not about race. This is about you. Hence the term "Make America Great Again." And now we're at "Keep America Great." Trump has been doing it. Well, what was Christ doing? Healing the sick, making the blind see,
Yes.
making them the crippled walk,
Yes.
healing the lepers,
Yes.
raising the dead.
Yes.
What has Trump been doing? Dealing with Korea, North Korea. Shut that down. We were on the verge, and everybody was getting ready for World War III. Trump's going to have us in World War III. None of that. No more talk of that. Trump shut them all down. America is not to be trifled with. China and trade. China, you're not going to screw over us anymore.
Any longer. Yes.
We are going to balance trade and make it fair with all of our trading partners if they want to remain our trading partners.
Exactly.
So I know some people are going to say, Trump is no Christ. I'm not saying he is.
No.
I am saying that, like Christ, Trump is overturning the money changers' tables in this country. And in this country, those that are against him, Allah, Sanhedrin, Sadducees, Pharisees, are hell-bent on doing whatever is necessary
Yes.
to stop a Trump victory in 2020. And that is why we are where we are today.
Yes.
Isn't it odd to you that we hear of cops arresting kids for breaking curfew, but I don't hear of them putting down people that are burning down buildings?
That's right.
I don't hear of them locking folks up because they are not social distancing. I don't hear of them arresting folks because they prevented them from burning up a building or an automobile. I don't hear of any of that. All I hear of are arrests of protesters. Where are the arrests of looters? But I did hear excuse me, a bunch of people that were arrested for rioting and looting being released back out onto the streets a few days later.
Yeah, somebody paid their how you
Their
call
bail.
it? Their bail.
Yes.
Yeah, the money's coming from outside to pay.
Follow
their
the
bail.
money. Follow the money.
And you said that you don't. You don't do the conspiracy theory or that. But since I come from a country over 25 years ago, right, which is Venezuela, and I see what's going on today in the United States, it reminds me so much.
What happened?
What happened back there? It's like I'm seeing the same movie again, but with different actors. But it's the same movie. It's the same strategy. It's the same policies. It's the same corruption. It's the same setup. It's the same everything. And now, the newspaper in Spanish, I know Americans, the English spoken person, they don't get the Hispanic news, right? But now we are finding out that Hispanic news are publishing in their newspapers. There is people supporting Antifa. There is group of people supporting Antifa who are coming from, guess what country? Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua,
Haiti.
El Salvador, Haiti. So all these people, they're coming here visiting, and some of them pass through the border, illegally. Mm-hmm. They came here with the agenda. Now all those videos, I can show it to you. I can send it to you, the link, so you can follow all those videos. You're gonna see flags from every country, and they're here just supporting Antifa, doing the destruction that they're doing to the black community.
Yes, yes.
To the black community, to the most vulnerable community in our country, okay? And they're here plotting against United States, using the black community with that, like you say, this is not about race, but they're using the race card, and that's when I say, yeah, I am allowed to believe in conspiracy theory.
So let me qualify when I say I don't do conspiracy theories. I don't entertain people sending me stuff to read that says Bill Gates wants to inject me with a chip. That's conspiracy theory BS that I'm not interested in. Mm-hmm. I don't do conspiracy theories that say 5G was responsible for coronavirus. I don't do that type of conspiracy theory BS. Mm-hmm. I don't do conspiracy theories that the earth is flat because we have satellites that revolve around the earth. I don't do conspiracy theories that the earth is only 6,000 years old for those what I call way out there Christian believers, or whatever you want to call them. When there is enough evidence to show that something is patently untrue, then I'm not interested in the nonsense, because I take the time to sit down and study these things and look at all of the information that is available, and when it is clear that that is simply just not the case, then I'm not interested. But I said things that are verifiable, undeniable, and documented, I consider, even if at the surface it appears as only a conspiracy, if a preponderance of the evidence makes it so, then it's undeniable. And the things that you just laid out was verifiable.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So we
After
continue.
this, we're gonna give him the microphone. He can explain his agenda, what he's, the political part, because I want people to get to know who's Derrick Greyson, what he wants, what he brings to the table, and just talk to us and reach people.
Sure.
Thank you.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them. Want to give your family or loved one the perfect gift? Then go online and check out the TornadoBodyDryer.com. I love mine and the warm heat air massage it gives me after my shower. The Tornado Body Dryer is super. You'll love it, and you'll love having one in your shop.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the americasbroadcastnetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And this is...
Let's talk Venezuelans. You see how he jumped from the racing, the horse racing, and to the, what is that? Just,
Muñequita linda.
yeah, but who sings that in English?
That's
Sinatra?
No.
Oh.
This Muñequita linda.
Okay, whatever. Don't worry about it. Okay, the mic is yours.
Oh, okay. Well, again, my name is Derrick Greyson. I'm running for U.S. Senate for the great state of Georgia. I always tell people I don't do stump speeches.
See, this is how
Uh-huh.
showing you, okay?
Okay, yeah, no problem. I don't do stump speeches because what I have found that when I see these politicians doing these stump speeches, they're generally just saying stuff to make people clap and applaud because those are the good vibe messages that they want to hear.
Yes.
As a conservative, I feel that it ought to be expected of me that I will support 100% of the Constitution 100% of the time. If I say I'm a conservative, then that should be a baseline of what is expected of me when I get to office.
It should be for everyone.
Yes. If I say that I believe in the Constitution, it ought to be understood that I support wholeheartedly the core of the Constitution for the citizens, which is the Bill of Rights. Right?
Yes.
So why do I need to do a stump speech on I'm pro-second? If I believe in the Bill of Rights,
It's whole.
that's whole. Yes, of course I support the Second Amendment
Of course.
and the First Amendment, Third, Fourth, Fifth.
I plead the fifth. The fifth. I plead the fifth.
There you go. So I don't get into those types of things. Now, what I have been told by other political consultants is don't do two things. Don't talk about your opponent negatively, and don't only give feel-good messages. Well,
That time is gone.
yeah,
are in
that
another-
time is gone. The country is burning.
Yes, we are in another situation now.
Yes.
That changed.
And we need to compare.
Yes. And so I don't talk about Collins on a personal level. I don't know him.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure he is a good father if he has children, or I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of being a great husband, friend to his neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to his voting record, it is abysmal. He has done us a disservice. So you darn right I am going to talk about his voting record, because based on his voting record alone, he needs to go. Now, even though Kelly Loeffler does not have a voting record that is been recorded on the index that I use, she has been casting votes since she's been there, and one of them was for the renewal of FISA, with a few minor changes, none of which address the issues that Donald Trump was faced with. FISA abuses that allow for him to be spied upon.
Ooh.
Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thankfully, the House did what Donald Trump had urged them to do, not pass the Pfizer renewal, because it needs to be fixed.
Of course.
It is broken. So, what people can expect from me is two things. When in office, an exposure of every single representative and senator that is engaged in any activity that is going to violate the rights, freedoms, liberties of all American citizens. That's number one. Number two, to always vote with the Constitution 100% of the time and 100% of the Constitution. And three, to help Donald Trump in preparing in his second term the restoration of America as it was when I was growing up, in terms of opportunities, and that's jobs. Jobs are going to come back.
Hallelujah.
When those jobs come back, you know what? We need our kids to be prepared
Yes.
to meet the desire for those jobs.
Yes.
So my proposal is to pull back the Department of Education. I would like to see the Department of Education abolished, gone away with, because the Department of Education given to us by Jimmy Carter was the beginning of the federal government stealing our children
That's
away
right.
from us and indoctrinating them into all of the nonsense that we hear taking place today.
Bingo.
Okay?
Bingo.
Yes.
And my proposal for that would be STEM, which is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yes.
Yes.
Every child is not going to go to college.
Not every child. That's right.
That was the lie sold to us by Jimmy Carter. That was the lie that was further perpetuated by Bush with No Child
Left
behind.
That's right.
Okay? They took away all of that because they knew one day we would wake up and there would be no manufacturing jobs in this country. Because while NAFTA, negotiated by Bush daddy and signed by Clinton,
Yes.
was put in place, that was the beginning for them to maneuver themselves into throwing gold to China and other countries.
They sold us
While,
to China.
Yes, while moving the backbone of this country
That's right.
overseas.
That's
that
right.
goes from manufacturing, farming, produce,
Engineering.
you
Everything.
name it.
Technology.
You name
Everything.
it. And China has been stealing our technological and intellectual property for decades.
Yes.
And here's what most people don't understand. They did it with the help of United States politicians.
That's exactly what I was saying.
That's the point.
These people who are in there for 20 years, 30 years, and 10 years, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they help out to sell out our country to China. They are the problem because they were silent.
Yes. And as with bad cops, it is governors, mayors, sheriffs, police chiefs.
Yes.
They are responsible for that tool of the deep state. Bad cops are a tool of the deep state to breed division and mistrust for all cops.
Yes.
Exactly.
For
Yes.
all cops. And that is why we are in this situation. You got all of these fools, I'm not talking about protesters, voicing valid concerns over bad cops, but it is not about race. Only 9 black people were killed by cops that were unarmed last year in 2019. I think it was 16 or 17 white unarmed citizens were killed by cops. This is not about race.
No.
I posted a meme on my wall that showed a number of different racial and sexual makeups of officers, male, female, black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, killing various types of citizens, black, white, male, female, children. This is not about race. But that is what the fools that are rioting and looting, you know what? I'm going to correct myself. That is what the protesters think it is about, race. Mm-hmm. And it is giving an excuse to the fools who are rioting and looting and destroying property. And they have graduated to murder. I think it's 6 police officers have been killed in the past week, not counting the citizens that have been killed. They are now murderers. Mm-hmm. Okay? And all of them, many of them, with the exception of the rioters and the looters, because they don't care about the reason, but many of the protesters think that this is about race. And it's not. This is a battle between Donald Trump and the deep state.
And we are caught up in the middle.
Yes.
The people are caught up in the middle. So we need to stay strong. And let me share with you this tweet from the mayor of Minnesota. Minneapolis. Yeah, Minneapolis. He tweeted that this situation in Minneapolis, he didn't see it before. It was well organized and had the influence from outside. The mayor tweeted. Let me find it first, okay? Go ahead.
Now I remember the name of the singer, Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole.
Sweetheart.
I remember him and his daughter.
Natalie.
Natalie, yeah.
Okay, the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, says this look more like a military operation with ringleaders going from city to city.
So AG Barr has issued a directive that they are to go out and locate and apprehend all of those ringleaders that you're talking about. Don't think that they don't know what's going on. I told you.
They do.
They know. They understand. But had Trump told Americans a month ago that the pandemic is going to dovetail into what we see nobody would have believed him and they would have called him crazy.
Yes.
Remember when Trump told everybody in his election cycle, first election run, I'm being spied on?
Nobody believed it.
Nobody believed it.
That's right.
Nobody believed it.
Yeah.
And there's a video that Tucker Carlson did. I share it ever so often. Tucker Carlson basically called out rhinos in the Republican Party. The point of the video was, and what he said was, in the first 2 years, who had control of the government? Republicans.
Yes, that's right.
He said, when Donald Trump said that he was being spied on, he played a clip from Trey Gowdy, whom I have been calling a rhino for the last 4 years. People thought I was crazy. Of Trey Gowdy saying, well, my fellow citizens would agree with everything that the FBI did. The FBI did everything that my fellow citizens think that they should have done in this, and I see no evidence of the president being spied upon. Well, that was all BS.
And now he's on fire.
Now he's on fire, but he's been exposed. There were nearly 50 Republicans who quit after Donald Trump won. And the purpose of them leaving office was to give the House and the Senate to the Democrats. They didn't get the Senate, but they did get the House.
Yes, and one of them was Flake from Arizona.
Yes.
Remember the Senator Flake? He didn't run again. a lot of them didn't.
Gowdy didn't run again.
Yeah.
And
Ryan didn't run again.
and we will follow this list after these messages.
In 2009, the membership organization Docs for Patient Care was founded. People all around the country wanted to participate in the efforts of this group, and they wanted to join, but they were unable to do so unless they were physicians. It's for this reason that the Docs for Patient Care Foundation was created. Now, everyone can join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. While you're at your computer, please go to www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org and make a tax-deductible donation and join the fight along with us. Thank you.
If your health insurance premium is more than your mortgage, Ellen Deal with Ideal Solutions is here to help. Whether you're a small business owner, individual, family, or baby boomer, email maga45cag@gmail.com and I'll respond with 3 easy questions to help you determine if you can get away from Obamacare. As a 20-year veteran of the insurance industry, I'm here to help with all your insurance needs. Email Ellen Deal at maga45cag@gmail.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And this is America's Web Radio.
Let's talk Venezuela. This is the program. Okay, I'm gonna read an editorial from a small group that Carlos he managed of 20,000 people in Spanish. So when he does the editorial, he publishes it in Spanish and then he publishes it in English because we have people who speak English who are following us, our group. So the difference between a politician and a statesman is that the politician thinks about the next election while the statesman thinks of the next generation. That's a quote from James Freeman Clarkey. This week's event shows us the two country models being contested with the American nation. The country model proposed by President Trump in 2016 versus the one that followed Barack Hussein Obama. Obama's thinking of social justice, even if it requires breaking the laws, lying, and using the state's resources to crush political enemies, even with the use of violence, where the important thing is not to solve the nation's problem, but the political process, where, by the way, private censorship was established through the network operators. 11 years ago, Obama faced the very high cost of maintaining the space program, a top plan for U.S. security and development from every point of view, but with huge costs already around $400 million per launch. Your solution? Just tell NASA or tell contractor to take the profit off, or I will leave you without resources and you will ride our astronauts in the Soyuz capsule of the era of socialism. The nation that set foot on the moon today was the one that asked for the ride from his house in space, putting the United States' prestige and the Cape into question. President Trump did the exact opposite. He believed in the country's ability, in our know-how, and the first day of work order, the revival of the space program to put our crew back to the end of his first term, our means. putting Vice President Pence himself at the forefront of this work. Met, the current cost for launch only 20% of what they cost 11 years ago, but adjusted against inflation, that would be less than 15%. About censorship, what a single stock and argument solid bodies established as a regime for technology platforms where they must follow the First Amendment or face lengthy and costly demand as publisher. Today, not only the military-industrial apparatus represented by Boeing, Lockheed, and Grumman are creating technology. We have three other players: SpaceX, Virgin Galaxy, and Blue Amazon, all civilians who are already aiming not only at the moon in 2024 but on Mars in 2030. While on Earth, Barack Obama's socialist struggle model destroys cities by creating chaos and misery through socialism with terrorist mob like Antifa. The citizen of the United States and the orb see hopeful that President Donald J. Trump brings back the American concept, where the human race, through competition and the free exchange of ideas, is destined for greatness.
Mm-hmm. So, two models of countries. Can be they related, or we have to eliminate one of them?
Two models of country.
Yes, it's either the Americanism, returning to the Americanism in order to bring the conservative values again to the table, or the social justice plus the globalism and the other side.
Okay, we have a constitution, which is the founding document for our country. That's already laid out. Anything that's contrary to that needs to be abandoned. I mean, it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody asked me last night, would I support a human rights bill? Why? We got a Bill of Rights. It's not subdivided.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a socialism, right? Like a human rights bills.
Well, we look. The Declaration of Independence in the preamble says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal," so forth and so on. We wouldn't have needed the 13th Amendment if those statements were embodied in the hearts of all men and women at the founding of the country.
Mm-hmm.
While there were some of the founding fathers that wanted to get rid of slavery, they felt it was more important, more prudent, shall I say, to get the country, its founding, solidified first. So they did not address that issue at that time. They just didn't have the will to do it for whatever reason. But the foundation was there. The words were there. There was nothing that excluded anyone based on race, sex, creed, origin, whatsoever. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And therefore, we wouldn't have needed the 13th Amendment if everybody understood that and lived by that.
That's right.
Because there would have been no slavery to begin with. They would have ended it on that day. And I imagine if they thought they could have, they would have. But of course, it took a couple of hundred years later for slavery to die. And we wouldn't have needed the 14th and 15th Amendment if they understood the intent of the 13th Amendment, but there were still people hell-bent on not treating blacks as equal citizens under the law. And likewise, had it not been for, because Abraham Lincoln was dead, his party that was left over decided to compromise with the South, and we got the Compromise of 1877, which led to the advent of Jim Crow laws and the black codes. Again, it still wasn't in the hearts of men. They were still determined to reject the preamble statement, the 13th Amendment, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. And they found ways to circumvent it with black codes and Jim Crow. So, and then of course, it was the Civil Rights Act, the death of Kennedy, who would have passed civil rights. We know Eisenhower tried, but it was rejected by Democrats. So it just wasn't in the hearts of and souls of men during those times. But we got past that when Jim Crow died, when people got to see what racism and hatred really was on the day of dogs, billy clubs, and water hoses. I think something changed in the heart and soul of the country, and Jim Crow died. Were there still some holdouts? Of course there was. There are always going to be racists amongst us. But racists are shy today. If you go on Facebook, there's some things you will never see them say, because the last thing they want is to be labeled as a racist and to have it in writing, because they know they could lose their jobs, things of that nature. So being a racist is not popular anymore. That says to me that something changed in the country. The country as a whole does not accept it. So the tool used by the deep state, bad cops, is used to make people think that by and large the country is still racist, when it's not.
It's not.
Bad cops will kill anybody.
Bingo.
So no, we don't need any more documentation. Legislation. We need to get rid of legislation like qualified immunity.
Yeah, we need to go back to basic.
We need to get back to the basics and act off of the documents that we have. The Bill of Rights is enough to secure the liberties and freedoms and rights of every single American citizen in this country.
Thank you very much, Derrick. With this reflection, we end this absolutely marvelous program.
We want you for the next time again, okay? You still have until November.
Okay,
So
still got until
Yes.
November.
Yeah, you still have. You can come back later again.
Yes,
Yes.
I'll be glad to.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for
David?
having me.
Take it.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
My name is Kyle Hayes, a motorsports student at Alfred State College. Every year, Alfred State students compete in the Great Race, which is a cross-country time endurance rally for vintage vehicles. As you can imagine, it's pretty costly. I'm asking for your help. Your donation can make it possible for these students to live their passion and promote the vintage automobile industry. Please visit our site at give.alfredstate.edu and search Great Race to learn more.